Jarrod.
David, Elizabeth, Beatrice Ford.
That's how it is. Now, okay, I'm drinking a beer. What are you drinking?
Okay, I am drinking a concoction that looks like that.
Okay.
See it? And it is, I don't know if you can see this, Orange Rumble Milk Punch,
Wow.
which was prepared and very kindly sent by Lauren Jameson, Brett's far better half.
You do
Uh,
well out of them, don't you?
they have treated me for some unknown reason incredibly well. Yeah. So yeah, it's delicious. I'm not typically a cocktail guy, as you may know, but this is lovely. Um, and this particular one, as the name would suggest, has kind of a like a thick, milky consistency. But you don't really taste the milk, but there is definitely like an orange flavor and kind of like hints of pineapple in there.
Wow.
Uh,
I want some of that. So is that like a homemade
yeah, yeah. She
concoction that sent to
is,
you? Wow.
yeah, it's
Well, look,
delicious.
I was just wanting to gloss over the beverage section for today, but and while we're giving thanks, I was sent some Sierra Nevada beers by my friend Paul McMahon. So thanks, Paul. Um, in a strange thing whereby you know sometimes somebody says, could you do this, and you go, yeah, no problem, and you do it, and then they send you a present. You're like, now I feel bad because like I was doing something nice, and now I've got a reward. I feel like I was doing it for pay, but at the same time I did get a crate full of possibly my favorite beer, so I'm
There
not
you go.
complaining. Thanks, Paul. Anyway, drinks schminks, tell me what you've done the last week.
What have I done this last week? Well, I mowed the yard one day,
Did you?
which was a lot of fun. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to
Stop
do.
teasing me, come on, man.
And then that very next day, we went into the studio. Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, spent last Monday through Friday making a record.
And so is that record now, you think, made?
It is, I would say, like 89% made, if not
No,
more.
that is specific. Which
Uh,
which which for me is incredible work to get that far into it in 1 week. So tip of the invisible hat to you.
Thank you very
And
much.
so tell me all about it.
Yeah, so we went into a place here in Nashville that is aptly named The Studio, and it is exactly that. It is a
Yes.
studio. Went in with our buddy JP, who we all know and loathe. Went in with a guy called Jono Ricks, who is best known for playing drums and everything else with the Wood Brothers. And he played drums and keyboards on the record, and he's just a monster of a musician. And then Ted Pecchio, who also played bass on that Texas EP that I put out recently, he was back in with us. Yeah, and that was it. We
So you threw it down, band in a room playing live all together.
That's it. Band in a room playing live all together. I mean, obviously, it wasn't all together. Jono was playing drums,
I was
and then
playing drums and keys at the same time is difficult. I've seen it done, but
yeah, and he does it on a regular
right.
basis with Wood Brothers. But we figured for this, I'd let him have two hands for each
Yeah,
instrument.
yeah, that's very, very gracious.
Yeah, but yeah, it was all cut live. You will be very pleased to hear that not all of the vocals are going to be live.
Look, it's not like I'm, you know, hell bent on vocals not being live. Like in an ideal world, like they would be. It would be like Sinatra singing with the orchestra. But I just find for me, for the best results, I have to sing it 100 times and choose the best bits and
Yeah.
piece it together.
Well,
That's
I had
that's my
already.
process. You can have yours.
Yeah, and I do. and I had already decided that while I was going to, aim for live vocal keepers, I was going to allow myself to re-sing something if I thought
Yeah.
I could better it. So there are a handful of tunes that are live vocals, and that was that. Felt pretty much like we nailed it. So why revisit it?
Yeah.
But also, I learned by kind of late on day 2 that not being on the road for 7 months means that my voice isn't as strong as it used to be. And so it was pretty ragged.
Also, I don't know if you find it, but studio singing is so different to live singing. I don't know if it's an adrenaline thing, but like on the road, I can yell my guts out every night for like 2 hours, and then the next morning I can barely talk, and then by the evening, have a beer and we're good to go again. But like studio, it's like I think it's because you're really paying attention to the nuance. You're not belting out, and strangely, sort of almost like, I suppose ironically, when you're really trying to take care of what comes out, I find it does a lot more damage when you're just like ripping the hell out of your vocal cords.
Yeah, I kind of
situation.
yeah, and all of the vocals, had it been in a live scenario, would have been fine. This is a record. This thing's gonna
exactly like live. I mean, I think sometimes that I can sing live. That's all right. And then when I recently did this live record, and it was like we recorded every single show of an entire tour, and it was tricky trying to find like one version of each song where the vocal wasn't like really bad. Like to my ear, just like it would just go along for a bit, and then it's just like pitchy and like, what on earth is that? And like weird like breathing anomalies and things. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you are way more like controlled and in the pocket when you sing than I am. Like I'm a kind of a bit of a bull in a china shop, but still.
Well, I'm able to scream and then be able to do it again the next day. I'd be done for like a week. So we each have our strengths.
We do. And speaking of your strengths, tell me about the songs. How many?
10.
10. That's a good number. I like 10.
It will be 10 tunes for the record. I was tempted to try to record a couple of other ones because I do have, I don't know, maybe another 5 or 6 tunes that I would like to record at some point, but didn't necessarily feel right for this collection, but in the end, it was kind of clear that we weren't going to be able to get everything done on all of these already, so it didn't really make sense to track any others.
So those 10, those were your priority 10, your A team, the ones you thought that were going to go. You didn't have like a last minute, because for me, there's always a moment in the studio when you're making a record that you think, oh, this vibe is good and it suits this other song. You didn't do any last minute substitutions or anything?
I didn't do any last minute substitutions. Like I say, there were a few tunes where I already knew that I wanted to record them, and with the band that we had in there and how great everything was feeling, I was definitely thinking, man, if we can blow through some of this stuff and we get the opportunity, I'd love to cut this, because it's all grooving right now.
Yeah.
But in the end, seemed to make more sense to just plow through and focus on this particular project first.
Yeah. And did you find, as is often the case, for me, it might not be for you, but when you're like considering an album project, like a whole body of songs, for me, there's always one song, at least one, that in the recording process, like you start off thinking like, it's a decent song, but it's not a world beater, and it sort of takes on this life when you record it, and it just is a real favorite. Like I think pretty much every record I've ever made, there's one that sort of has emerged from the shadows, like during its recording process, to become like my favorite song when it really wasn't, in the writing. Maybe you got one of those?
Yeah. I won't say that there were any in this 10 that I was necessarily unsure about. Um, you know, the ones that I wasn't 100% sure about are the ones that didn't get recorded. But yeah, there were definitely some favorites going in, and I will say those songs absolutely ended up how I wanted them to, and I'm feeling great about them. But yeah, there were a couple that that I liked the songs a lot, obviously enough to put them on a record, but they didn't feel like the hit. Not that there's going to be a hit, but and after we tracked them, one in particular called "Don't Deprive Me," it's turning out really cool.
Well, that sounds like a soul tune. Don't deprive me. That sounds like Aretha Franklin should be singing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, she could sing anything, but it's actually more in the vein of like a Harry Nilsson tune or a Beatles song or something like that. Kind of quirky at points. Yeah.
So how would you describe the character of the work as it emerges? What
It's
kind of sound, what vibe?
It's a rockin' record, man. Much more so than any of my previous ones. We sort of touched on that a little bit with Ready the Horses, with a few of the tunes, but this
Well,
one,
I think of Ready the Horses as being kind of like a soul record in many ways.
yeah, and that was kind of the idea, when I was writing one of those.
Yeah. But eclectic, because then I think of well, there's that cowboy song that clearly isn't a soul tune. I think you and I maybe suffer from the same affliction of like wanting to be eclectic and diverse within the confines of a single album. It's like
well, I think that's because you and I both came up listening to people like Tom Waits or Paul Simon, where every song is different on the record. There aren't two songs that sound alike, and nor should there be. In my
I mean, I think the music is music, and like I almost was shocked when it was put to me that like you can't put a country song on your album that also has like a rock and roll song and lots of acoustic stuff and a piano ballad. You can't do that. Like it's all got to sound the same, and it's a bit depressing, really, that to actually essentially be told that you can't straddle genres or dip your toe into musical ideas that are not in your station or not part of your culture. I mean, I come from Eastbourne. What culture do I have?
Sunshine.
We have no. I have no musical heritage. In my, that's my birthright.
Yeah.
So what is there but to steal from people who've got much better musical cultures? And for me, that's always been in your land of the for now free.
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, I suppose, and I know you can attest to this right now. There was no one involved to tell me that they all had to sound the same.
Yeah.
And so they were gonna, there's no A&R man poking his nose where it doesn't belong, trying to tell you how to write a song or record a song or make a record. So we made the record we wanted to make.
Which actually you did on the previous record, even though it ended up coming out on a major label. The actual recording process was done before they ever got involved. So you've actually missed out on the joy of trying to make a record with a record label looking over your shoulder, which is...
Oh, shucks.
There are advantages,
Oh, yeah.
Them picking up the tab is one.
I'd say money being among them.
Yeah. And sometimes if you do have a label or an A&R who you really sort of trust and get along with, then it can be very useful to have someone to just to converse with and just to check in every now and then. I was back in the day lucky enough to have Dave Wibley be my A&R man when I was making records with the band, who went on to be my manager and be a good friend for a long time. So it was that was easy. And then in future years, I always got on well with the labels that I worked with, but making, no matter how much you like them or get on with them, like making a record with the help of a label is very difficult, I find.
So I've heard. Yeah.
Unless you just want to just give them whatever they want and just say yes, tell me what to do and I will do it. If you're a headstrong, belligerent and stubborn
Go on.
bastard, then it can be difficult. But luckily, like I say, yeah, this is not the issue. So so the flip side of the question I asked you before, are there any songs that you feel didn't live up to expectations?
No, thankfully. That is always kind of a like a minor in the back of your head kind of worry. It's like I've got this idea, but until it's all fleshed out and the band is played and everything's on tape, you never really know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
But no, thankfully, everything either met or exceeded expectations. And it's kind of hard not to whenever you've got guys like that in the studio with you, as you well know from your recent one with Mark, Darren, and whenever you've got players like that that just kind of live and breathe this stuff and can bring life to what you bring to the table. It's kind of hard for it to not go right.
Yeah.
And thankfully it all went right.
So how did you get to that point? Did you have to do a lot of preparation? Did you do like rehearsals before the session?
Not really. I got together with JP one day just to kind of chat about guitar parts. This record was a different one for me in that for the first time ever, I made really detailed demos. Right. Up until like every record prior to this one, if at all, it was just like a cell phone acoustic guitar kind of really rough sketch thing. But since the world closed down back in March and we were homebound, I just started making demos and kind of writing out different parts, whether they were BV parts or guitar riffs or whatever, and loved the process and wanted to keep some of them. There were going to be plenty of moments where I was going to say to JP, you just do what you do, but there were also a handful of things where even he was saying, man, I really dig this. I think we should just keep that, which was cool for me because he's a way better guitar player than I'll ever be.
So just for the benefit of anyone who's bothering to listen to our conversation, we are talking about JP Ruggieri, who is my favorite guitar player and a very lovely, very strange man, and he has magic in his fingertips. There are some people who would say that you and I are very fine guitar players, and I would say they don't know what they're talking about, with the greatest of respect, because someone like JP really has kind of he's put in the hard yards and the at least 10,000 hours.
At least.
Yeah.
So we one afternoon was spent with JP just kind of talking through that, because we were going to be tracking all of this live. It was just a good to to have a game plan going in as far as, okay, I'm going to play this part, we want to keep this, so you're going to play that live, this could be an overdub, that kind of thing. But beyond that, I just sent everyone the demos. I think they may have kind of glanced over them before we all got into the studio. And then it was just go, but before each take, I would usually kind of, either they would listen to the demo or I would play through it. And then we'd do a take. And in fact, one of the tunes, Home Again, the run through was the take.
Right.
Thankfully, Brooke, our engineer, had the presence of mind to hit record.
Yeah.
We ended up doing a few takes after that and just kept saying, man,
Yeah.
that first one that was it.
Oh, see, it's a shame that you did the other ones. It's nice to just like, we only ever played this once. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's how it was on Ready the Horses. Within the meantime, that again was supposed to just be a run through.
Yeah.
And Dave Lynch had started the tape machine, and we all kind of thought, oh, we're not going to top that,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that being quite the moment, and it's funny you sort of get that. I remember on that recording, just once the drums came in, there was just this warmth and richness, and then the song just sort of happened, and like, well, that's done then. Yeah. I've got to say, I don't know if I've ever had that on a one take thing, but then I very rarely record with a band. I think of the stuff that I did recently live, I don't know if we actually kept any first takes. Yeah. But then we were kind of working it out as we went along as well, so sure. Like how to get in and get out at the end of the song.
Yeah,
I suppose that had the advantage of having played that live a few times, which if the actual arrangement is locked in, that really helps, because it means you're not having to sort of work that out on the fly as well.
Yeah. And there were definitely a few like that where we had a pretty good take, but then we all, wait a minute, how do we end this thing?
Yeah, that's what the fade is for. Just pull it down.
Yeah.
Do you do fade outs? Have you ever done a fade out?
On my very first record, I think we did a fade out on maybe one tune. Actually, no, I think we had planned to do a fade out. I'd have to go back and listen. I sort of vaguely remember that we had planned to do a fade out, so I just played forever. And I think that we kept it. And I'll have to go back and listen. I'm not even sure what song it was, but I sort of vaguely remember thinking, yeah, we're going to fade this out. And then for whatever reason, after we had all the different pieces on there, we were just kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. All right, we'll just keep a 10-minute song or something,
I was always really like anti fade out. I always thought it's like such a half-assed, like just end the song, you couldn't be bothered to come up with an ending, so you just fade it out. And then I think sort of something happened, and there was a song of mine that was like, man, this should fade out, and it is a legitimate way of ending a song. I think if you've got a song where like, no, it's not right that it should just stop, that it should come to an end and resolve. It should suggest that it goes on forever, and you should fade it out. And then if at some point, like an hour later, someone were to push the fader back up, it's still going.
Yeah.
The fade out and fade back in again is another favorite thing. Like Suspicious Minds, I think, has that.
Yeah.
Where it fades out, then it comes back in again. And I like to think that's because someone in the band made a horrific fuck up, and they wanted the whole of the outro. It's like, let's just take everything out. He plays the bum note, and then we just bring it back in again, so no one ever hears it. But,
I'm sure that's how that started. I mean, there's no other logical reason for it.
Pardon. I like to think that it's like, if you think about the making of a record, like everyone gets a chance to put their own like individual stamp on it, like whether in the band or the writer or the singer or the producer. Mastering engineers, they never get to do anything flamboyant or creative, but like, you control the fade, you have the power. I reckon it sort of got as far as the mastering engineer, who was like, guys, check.
You don't think that would have been the mix engineer doing that?
I'm sure it would, but I like to think that like the song had been done, and then like in the mastering studio, this guy was like, now it's my turn to shine. Elvis, I'm coming for you.
Band gets it back. What the hell has he done? Yeah. He just took out like 4 bars for no reason.
But it's incredible. It's audacious. I like it. It's like, if you think about like Elvis, the Vegas years, it's a very showbiz thing to do. It reminds me of like them, that thing that James Brown used to do, where he would like just be so weak and you couldn't go on anymore, and someone would come and put a blanket over him, and then he would like throw it off, and he'd like drop into his splits again, and full of energy. Like, showmanship. It's great. Why not doing it in the mastering studio as well?
Valid point.
In your studio experience, did you spend a lot of time like auditioning gear and trying out different sounds and things, or was it, do you sort of adhere to that sort of just stick a mic in front of something and get on with it?
A little bit of both. I mean, for me, I had spent the last several months kind of figuring out, guitar and amp for the perfect tune and,
Yeah.
All of that. So I had a pretty clear idea before we went in what I was going to use where.
Mm-hmm.
JP.
So, and on that note, did you end up with a kind of an A team for the album? Is there a particular guitar amp combo that is the sound of the record?
Yeah, well, this old 1956 Gretsch Silverjet that I've been playing for a good while, which belongs to Brett, but he's never going to see it again. That through my 1962 Fender Princeton was kind of the main thing for most of the tunes. There were a couple of songs where I was playing a Telecaster through a Tweed Champ, which is just, that's just straight up rock and roll.
Yeah.
Which was fun.
I never saw you as a Telecaster guy.
Yeah, I've always been into them, but until like April or something, I had never owned one. But now I've got a very good one.
Yeah.
Made by this guy in Idaho called Eric Daw. Does these custom kind of Fender style guitars, hand winds his own pickups, and they're way closer to sounding and feeling like the old ones than just about anything else out there. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Oh yeah. So for me, I always and I'm not like a guitar, thing, but for me, like a telly, you gotta beat it up, but then I'm a ruffian when it comes to playing guitar. I always kind of feel like a Telecaster needs to be played violently and aggressively, but that's not your style, is it? You're more of a caressing kind of guitar player.
I don't know about that.
Do you amend your style for different instruments?
Well, yeah, but it also just depends on the song. Like these songs are that guitar in particular got used on. They're pretty aggressive, sort of Stonesy kind of
exactly. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
So yeah.
Anything where you can get like a full windmill in there,
we were doing. There was one tune, in fact, one of these songs where we were doing a full windmill in the control room as we were listening back.
Yes.
It didn't happen on the take, but that's because you would, severely miss your timing if you tried to do that, and probably like knock over some really expensive microphone in the process.
It's not really a studio move, the windmill, is it? Like it doesn't really bring much to the record,
Yeah, I kind of doubt even Pete Townsend was doing it on the record.
Oh yeah. He's doing his in an armchair, like.
Yeah, man.
Exciting times.
Yeah, so my setup for the most part kind of stuck with what I assumed that I would play on certain things. I know JP kind of tinkered with sounds as the rest of the band was kind of gearing up.
He does. He's a tinkerer.
But
he's often sort of revisiting his amp and like tweaking his pedals and things.
Yeah.
As he goes, like I can never hear the difference, but he's like, "Oh no, man, I need to just."
Yeah, which he did quite a few times.
He's like the only person I've ever known who actually adjusts the knobs on his guitar as well. For me, it's like put them all up to 10 and let's go for it. Like
while he's playing, no less.
Yeah, I didn't even know what they're for. Like. Especially like you're playing a Gretsch. I've got a Gretsch. It's got like 5-6 different knobs on it. I just slam them all up to 10 and let's just do it. But to actually be sort of like dialing in tones and things like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear it. Do you have a working title or even a decided finished title?
I have a few working titles.
Oh, are we going to do that again? I remember the forwards and backwards for Ready the Horses was kind of fun.
Yeah, I won't be divulging that in this chat.
Okay, we'll when we stop recording, we'll have a chat then. Yeah. In fact, I believe that I had a small hand in the naming of your last album, which was
You,
just pluralizing the horses. So
that's right.
I think you had Ready the Horse.
I had Ready the Horse, which was a line from Gold Rush.
Yeah.
And you correctly pointed out that it would be more inclusive if we just went ahead and pluralized horses.
Yeah.
And that was the right move. I was hesitant at first, I won't lie, but
yeah,
it was the right move.
I to be honest, the only reason that I suggested the pluralization of horses is because I think that the first time you mentioned it to me,
I remember now. Yeah.
I think I misheard, and I thought you wanted to call the album Eddie the Horse. I was like, who the fuck's Eddie the Horse? Is he like some mafia guy, that you met in Brooklyn? Yeah, Eddie the Horse. Hey. And then after that, I couldn't get Eddie the Horse out of my head.
Yeah. Well, the way that you said it to me, which was probably after you had heard it correctly, you're like, I don't know, man. It sounds to me like the horse is called Ready. I don't know. I just don't think it's going to work. I was kind of thinking, like, who the hell would think that a horse is called Ready? That doesn't make sense. But I saw the light eventually.
Yeah. I think people a lot of the time think that there's a lot of I suppose deep meaning in the names of albums, and often there is, but sometimes there really isn't. And the worst thing is when you've made the album, you're like, I do not know what to call this, and I've not had that a lot of times. Like I had it with my album Songs for the Road, which in the end that was like the resignation title, because I mean, I've spoken about it so many times, I don't want to do it again. I'd lost my mind by this point, and it was like, oh, for fuck's sake, let's get the record out. We'll just name it after that song, Songs for the Road. And then like Charge was named quite late on in its manufacture, but every other record I've ever made, I've known the title almost like before we started recording it. It's
wow.
And the title has been sort of very much like the ethos of the record, and has kind of not defined its character, but its characters have been known, and that has sort of I suppose summed up what I think the record's about.
Yeah.
But you don't have that?
Honestly, I've never been that way. I don't think I've ever known the title until recording was underway, and usually after it's all recorded, and then there's some standout moment or standout lyric, or the theme sort of becomes more clear. I remember with The Lonesome Traveler, I was really close to making that one. Jarrod Dickinson is the Lonesome Traveler, very much in like the freewheeling Bob Dylan.
I like that.
And in the end, I can't remember if it was my parents or someone, but someone sort of talked me out of it, and I've always sort of wished I had stuck to that.
I like it. It's sassy.
That's me. I'm sassy. No, there's one word that sums up Jarrod Dickinson. It's got to be sassy.
Yeah.
And with Ready the Horses, I can't remember what some of the other potential ones were. I know Way Past Midnight was a thought, just because I loved how that tune came out, but it didn't really, sum up the album.
I think that sounds, that I seem to remember at the time liking that title. It sounds like it could be like a proper old school rock and roll record. It seems like a, Way Past Midnight. I don't know. I could imagine that being an Elvis record or something.
Yeah. See, and I could equally have pictured, like In the Wee Small Hours, or
exactly. Yeah. That.
Or The Heart of Saturday Night.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which actually ripped off In the Wee Small Hours for the cover art imagery.
Yeah.
If you
yeah.
But the rest of the record didn't really fit that, and I think we got there in the end with the right title.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, album titles are a lot of fun.
It's currently stressing me out.
Let's chat off the record, and I'll sort you out.
Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You'll add a hyphen somewhere or something like that, and it'll all make sense.
I feel like this is really my calling. It's just minor interventions in other people's records. I just want to stop making my own records. I just want to have minor interventions in other people's records. By the way, I've not put any like shaker down or anything on your thing.
I know. Well, it's all still on tape at the minute. So once it's not on tape, I'll send something your
Now,
way.
when you say tape, do you mean tape?
Oh, I mean tape, baby. I mean,
Oh,
like
you're rocking on big fat 2-inch tape.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Wow, I thought maybe you'd be back on the digital train, but you're
No.
still on tape. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Thankfully, we were still able to do this one on tape. So, yeah. I mean, if I am able to do it on tape, I can't imagine that I would ever choose not to. Now, there will almost certainly be more instances where I just can't do it.
Yeah.
For
And
financial reasons.
so you don't miss the I suppose the versatility and the you just get so many more options if you record to something like Pro Tools being the obvious.
Yeah, you do. But to me, well, two things. One, if you have a really good engineer who knows what they're doing, there aren't as many limitations as you would expect. You
Sure.
know, because you could still punch in, you could still do that kind of thing. And if you get really crazy, they can break out a razor blade. I've never had to do that yet. I've always sort of wanted to, but I think I'd be terrified of it too. So I'm glad it hasn't happened.
I've seen some razor blading, like the first record that my band made was on tape, and Hugh Jones was our engineer and producer, and like he's like old school, like all he had ever done at that point was working to tape, and so for him it was like, okay, let's edit this thing, chopping this thing up, and like, and he would edit drums like that, like sometimes between multiple takes.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, there'd be more sticky tape than tape visible. It would look like a barcode or something. This thing, just these stripes of black and white, and
Wow.
and he was so good at it. He would just like have a listen, spin it along a bit, slice, and you'd think, if you make a mistake here,
It's done.
like that's it. You can't undo. Like it's ruined. You've destroyed it.
Again. Yeah.
But really, very. It's kind of a lost art. I think there probably aren't obviously any engineers and who are coming up now. I presume they're just not going to be learning that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I do think in the last maybe 10 years, much like vinyl has kind of had a renaissance, I think working on tape has as well. And so I think a lot of studios are bringing it back, and therefore people are learning it. But obviously it's nothing like, even the early 90s, where that was still pretty much the way everybody made a record. But yeah, if you have a very competent engineer and one who's used to working on tape, it's not as scary as it sounds. But the other side of that is, I kind of like how it forces you to make decisions. Yes, you are more limited. You don't have the option of just keeping everything. And so it does make you in the moment, particularly if you're working on a budget, because tape's expensive. It's like $300 a reel.
Yeah.
You can only fit like 14 minutes on a reel or something.
So were you in that situation where you'd have to gamble if you do a take and you think that's pretty good, but we need to wipe over it and see if we can do a better one? See that?
Yeah. So,
that hurts, because like, what if you don't beat it?
What if you don't? Yeah. So Ready the Horses, the way we did that one, it was very much a do a take and you're either keeping it or we're going right back and doing it over. And so it felt pretty risky.
Yeah, because that whole album was on like sort of 2 tapes or something. It was like there was not a lot of tape stock used, was there? Yeah,
which I've often wished that I had purchased before he went back over them, but they're gone now.
They're gone now, are they?
Oh yeah. and they had to be, you know, it was either you're going to buy them and then I will buy new reels, or I'm going to have to reuse these, you know. But what was I saying on that? On this one, we were able to kind of do maybe like 2 takes, and it was like, okay, if you're wanting to do another one, we're going to have to go over one of these. And thankfully, it was always pretty obvious, you know. You kind of knew, even before you listened back, which one was going to feel the best. But I do like that. To me, it gets more stressful. Almost the more options you have, and the more things that you've left as possibilities, just the more stressful it is to work through it and to try to figure out what is right, where chances are you knew at the time what was the right thing. And just
but there's I think there's a mindset that you have to get into when you're working like that I've always struggled, which is how you pass the idea of an imperfection, and what imperfections are these beautiful moments, and what are like mistakes and errors and things that are bad. And it's something I've always struggled with in my own music, and yet in the work of others. Like I love, you know, some of my favorite records where like the singer goes violently off key. And like, and I know for a fact, if that's my recording, that is never going out, never. Or there'll be bits where like the drummer goes out of time with the guitar player, like those Rolling Stones records where the chorus is like 15 BPM faster than the verses, like, and they just can't get their shit together. But it's like it's wrong, but it's great. Whenever I hear that on my recordings, it's just wrong. It's like, well, you know, we can't live with that. It's got to be.
And I'm the same. I think everyone is probably like that for the most part. And I think in those instances, it's really helpful to have a group of people in there, not only that you love the way they play, but you trust them as musicians. And oftentimes the things that you're kind of cringing about, everyone else in the control room will be like, "You're crazy, man. That's awesome. You know, that's great. It's not something you should sweat." Or if a few of them are like, "Well, yeah," then you know, okay, we need to redo this. But I'm the same way. Listening back to a take, the only thing I can hear is the places where I screwed up. You know, or not even screwed up, but just wasn't at my best. You know.
But the question is, can you live with it?
Depends on the screw up. I mean, there are certainly things on every record that if I had sat there and done a million takes, I would eventually get it right. Or if you want to cut it all up and take this little bit from a different take and all that, you know, you can in theory fix it. But there are times where, yes, you might fix this tiny little error, but you're losing something in vibe. You know, and you just have to make a judgment call. You know, especially when I'm doing live vocals, you know, there might be a take where there's a little part of another vocal that I really liked better, but on the whole, this take felt so good that it's almost hard to say, well, you know, yeah, we should fix that little bit. That said, on this record, I'm re-singing some stuff.
But you're re-singing it on tape, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it'll still very much be a, you know, go back and do a full pass kind of thing. And then if I have to punch something, I'll punch something. But by and large, it'll be a full pass.
So we're not talking about like, you know, minute, you know, thing.
No. I mean, at kind of at most, I think I would, you know, re-sing a phrase, but it definitely won't get into, you know, cutting out before the like second syllable of this word, but keeping the.
I can crossfade within a syllable. Like that's.
More than anything else, I just don't have the patience for that. Like I would just rather just go re-sing it, you know.
Do you know what though? For me, I've done it so much that I really I actually really enjoy like comping a vocal, and I think it's a real skill, and I think it's something I do very
It's
well.
art. It's not even
Yeah,
a skill.
and
It is.
I think it is for me. It's like it's part of the creative
Yeah.
process, and part of the it's the end of the vocal performance is
Yeah.
is comping it together in a way that sounds like you actually did it.
It did technically.
Sort of, yeah.
Well, and you and I talked about this a lot, and a huge part of my desire to cut live vocals isn't out of some um, regard for authenticity.
No, no, that's not you, is it?
Definitely not. I mean that it's part of that, but it's also just that I prefer to play and sing at the same time. I'm
Yeah.
more comfortable playing and singing at the same time.
Uh,
Um, and so
you see, I'm deep in my heart. I'm Elvis. I'm Michael Stipe. I'm Frank Sinatra, or I'm Mick Jagger. It's like in my dreams, I'm hands free and just like prancing around the stage and like climbing the rigging and doing all that stuff. I'm maybe not Bono, not now anyway. But yeah, I sort of I love studio singing. Like I'm very handsy when I sing. I'm sort of doing all this thing a lot.
I know.
Like,
I can't sing near you whenever you're singing. Your hands are just all over me.
but yeah, it's weird. Like for me, the idea of playing and singing, like recording, is very odd to me. But then I suppose that's just sort of how I always did it. Like the first times I ever made records, the vocals were always a separate session, pretty much. Like everyone, the band leaves, and now it's like you spend an evening doing vocals. And I sort of I came to really enjoy the focus of that. Is like, right, tonight we do vocals, and you sing the song, and then maybe you sing it like 3 or 4 times. You listen back, you make some mental notes about the performance and the emphasis and where you need to push it, where you need to drop it off, and then you try and do a better one, and then you try and do a better one, and then you comp one together, and then you listen to it and go, I think I can still do a better one than that. And then I mean, and when I record by myself, I am my own worst enemy, because sometimes I think I rarely go more than 20, but like I will sometimes sing it 20 times.
Wow. I'd lose my voice. I just wouldn't have a voice by then.
But just before you lose your voice, that's when it's at its most, I don't know,
well, it's
emotive, I suppose.
We've talked about that before too, and during the session, because my voice was a little ragged, there were certain parts of it that sounded amazing.
Yeah.
Like there's this extra tiny little rasp that sounds really cool, and all of that, but there's also slightly less control, and I can't do certain things that I would normally be able to do. And it's often not even like a pitch thing. It's just a movement thing, if that makes sense. It's not that I couldn't hit the note. It's that I couldn't get to the note the way that I wanted to.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah.
That is definitely part of the things you have to consider, especially when you're making a record on a relatively short time scale, like you were. It's like when the Beatles, like they just book like a 14-hour session, and that would be the album session.
Yeah.
And so they'd have to think about it and go, we'll do Twist and Shout last, because my voice will be screwed by that point. And like Lennon's vocal on Twist and Shout is just so great, because he's ruined, because he's been singing for 14 hours. And when it comes to doing that, that's like, at the end of that take, he has nothing left. And that's always something to bear in mind.
And I definitely have. Like there's one particular tune that I know is going to be the final song that we do for this, because my voice will be wrecked by the end of it.
Nice.
particularly because there's these kind of background vocal things that Claire and I will do together. That's very aggressive, and
Ah, you're gonna get your shout on.
let me get my shout on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thrilled that.
Wish you'd been here.
Yeah, me too. Even just sit on a couch and try and tell you you're rubbish.
You can do that anyway.
E-tune JP's guitar.
I had your voice in my head the whole time saying that.
Do it again. Do it again.
You're keeping that? Really? That one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there will be plenty of footage. The other good part about this is Brett, our mate. He offered to come up and hang out at the session and do two different things. One was bring some very nice cameras that we used to film pretty much the entire session. Claire was in charge of filming everything. So we've got something like 5 terabytes worth of footage.
Jeez.
From the session. So at some point, like in the year 2035, we're going to have a nice little mini documentary.
Nice.
The making of the record, which is cool. We've never gotten to do that before. And Brett took a lot of stills as well. So we've got a lot of content surrounding the recording, which is great. And then the other thing that he offered to do, which when he made the offer, I was thinking that's really extravagant. I'm not sure that I can, pitch this without being embarrassed. But as you know, he owns a coffee roasting business and a coffee shop and a bar, and he offered to be the studio barista. And so he was in the kitchen in the studio, brought this incredible espresso machine and lots of other paraphernalia, and was just making whatever kind of coffee drink that anyone wanted at any given time throughout the session.
Wow, you guys must have been wired.
Yeah, of course, we were bouncing off the walls, like very well caffeinated.
On that note, what kind of studio hours did you keep? Because I know different people have very different ways of working.
Yeah, I kind of just had to take the lead of the engineer in the studio, which they preferred to do a 10 to 6 session with a break for lunch in the middle. So it's very civilized.
Yeah, very civilized.
Being my project, I obviously could have just kept working each day, but you have to be mindful that other people have lives.
Yeah, like at 6 o'clock, that's when the demons come. It's like you knock off at 6 and you got the rest of the evening just to go and obsess over all the things you do wrong.
I know. Yeah. But yeah, it was great, man. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, given the current climate, we were all wearing masks. I wasn't. I was in my little cubby hole singing, but as soon as we were, in the control room listening back or anything, everyone had masks on, and we were all keeping our distance. So it was a different way of making a record, obviously, than I've ever experienced. But it was still a blast getting to be in there, and particularly after 7 months of not playing music.
Especially not sort of having that interactive musical experience with other players. Yeah.
Oh man, it felt great. It felt really
fantastic. Good. It is a great privilege that we get to do this. I often am reminded of that. That especially as we become, me, it's more of an issue. More advanced in years. To just still have that thing that you do that's such a, I don't know. Yes, such a privilege to make music and to make records, particularly, and that's the important thing. And it really doesn't matter like what label releases them or whether anyone buys them or hears them. I mean, does anyone buy music anymore? It's very important that these things are getting done. So I commend you, and I say I commend you. I got to hear it first. It might be terrible. So
That's fair. And as far as you being advancing in years, I'm feeling it too, man.
Yeah.
I've done something to my shoulder in the studio,
Yeah. Was it the
and
fucking windmilling, wasn't it?
it was all the windmilling. Yeah, it happened like last.
You have very dainty little shoulders, though. Look at those. It's like you
No,
have no. You're so narrow. That's probably what it is. Like you don't really have shoulders like a human
I've
would.
never been called narrow before. I appreciate
Your
that.
arms just sort of come out of your neck. It's weird.
Yeah. So yeah, we're both aging rockers. I'm afraid.
Yeah, which is good. No, it's a good thing to be. You know, like I say, if
Better than being a dead one.
yeah. Although there are certain perks to that.
You can sell more records.
Exactly. Well, I don't know if that still works. I doubt I would. So, otherwise, I'd probably try it. But, no.
I'll advise it. Plenty of time for that.
Beautiful. Well, do you know what? I think should we leave it there? I'm overjoyed that we've had this moment to relive the glories of your past week. It sounds truly exciting. I cannot wait to hear what you've come up with and tell you what I really think of it.
Be gentle.
No.
Right. Well, it's been lovely, man.
Yeah, in the meantime, my love to everyone over there in Nashville. I hope you're all doing well, keeping safe.
Doing our best.
Yeah.
Sane.
Yeah. It's overrated.
Yeah. Right. Tell the gals I said hi, and let's do this again.
All right. Bye.
Bye.